What would be your biggest takeaway about yourself as a traveler from a trip like this?
Mm, I would say that I am more capable than I thought I would be
Yes.
for especially this type of trip. When I was on the flight to Mongolia, I was actually really worried that I wasn't going to be strong enough to handle riding horseback for 6 to 7 hours a day in sub-0 degree climate. And after the fourth or fifth day, I was having a blast on the horse. When I first started off, I thought I was going to die. Especially when they just start going at full speed and we're just like, okay, there's two choices. I either give up and I fall and I fly off this thing because I want to hit the eject button because my nervous system is so overloaded right now, or I breathe and I stick with it and I transform this nervous energy into like greater strength. And once you do that, there's something so just life changing about that. Realizing your true strength, realizing how your true nature, realizing how far your resiliency can take you and believing in yourself. And then by the end of it, but by the time I left, I was like, I don't want to go. I want to stay with on my horse. And I love this life. And like, what is the point of life if I'm not on a horse anymore? I like went back home and I'm like, what am I doing with my
Oh,
life?
that's great. It's so true. I think a lot of times the biggest thing that gets in the way of things that we want to do is just our own fear of facing it and our own fear of being able to accomplish it. I think a lot of travelers are like, oh, I couldn't go there alone or I couldn't figure this out. And it's funny. Again, my husband is older than me. He's very wise. But a lot of times I'm like, well, I don't want to do that by myself. And he's like, well, at some point you're going to have to figure it out. So why don't you just start now? And it's like, just go on this trip by yourself and figure it out. Like, and you will surprise yourself. And like you said, you'll think, not only will you think that's easy to a lot of things, but you'll be surprised at what your body can do. And like you said, you'll be surprised at what your mind can do and how it actually enjoyed the physical pushing and the mental pushing. So, I think that's a great point. And I want to talk a little bit about imitating destinations. Mongolia and China, they can feel, again, intimidating. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about that country or about those places in general?
I think people are terrified because they don't know where to go, actually. They don't really know much about China. They don't really know, like, how to even begin to plan a trip for China. I mean, first of all, China is very, very vast. And in fact, I'm planning a retreat in China in the Yunnan mountains, for where the birthplace of Pu'er is with the Bulong tribe. And so people are kind of like, what do I even do in China, you know? And I think so that's a major thing. So it's kind of like you got to pick your own adventure because actually China has everything. You have the crazy mega cities, you have the beautiful, gorgeous countrysides, you have the megaliths that are more grand and more strange than the Great Pyramids, but no one even hears about them, right? So it's like, do you want to go on a spiritual adventure? Do you want to go on like a very physical backpacking adventure? Do you want to have a city life? Do you want to experience all of it? How much travel do you actually want to do? And I think one amazing thing about being in Asia and other countries, Europe has it too, is the train system. Like taking a train is so much less stressful than having to fly and do all the security check and then the screenings and then you got to be there 2 hours ahead and all these different things. And I found that like one amazing thing is the train system. It's absolutely impeccable. There's trains going everywhere and you have just so much more freedom to kind of wing it than having to plan a, a flight because then the tickets are going to get high and then you have to be stressed out about that. So I think that you have to first decide when you are going to a place like Mongolia or going to a place like China, why are you going there? What exactly do you wish to see? For me personally, when I go to China, I love seeing the ancient cities, the
Mm.
cities where there's still rivers and you can literally hire a guy on a boat to have a tea ceremony as you're floating down the river through these cherry blossoms. That's my vibe for China. And going to all these little villages where they're making dumplings and you just sit on a little stool and you eat the dumplings, right?
Uh,
And so I prefer doing that rather than the mega city aspect, right? I have enough. I go to New York all the time, Los Angeles. I've been there, done that. I don't really need to explore much. So, yeah, it's just figuring out like what is your intention of going there?